Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's the 4th of February 2018. Now, I made a movie and put it up. A bit of a look at some trains and buses, and especially disappointing in my opinion was the bus replacement of trains all over the place in the north, everything from Bowen Hills right through to Rockhampton, which is unbelievable because it's not possible for track repairs or whatever it is they were doing to be carried out all the way to Rockhampton in this weekend. They couldn't demonstrate how they did all the work and what work they did and in every line. So could you imagine for a moment the line to the airport's only relatively new. I mean, what is it, 1990s I think. And what was wrong with that? So close that down. Oh, okay. Line to Shorncliffe, closed it down. Oh, fairly almost brand new railway line out to Kippering, closed that down. Out to Caboolture, close that down. Up through the Sunshine Coast, closed. Rockhampton, closed. Now, with proper planning, the long distance trains could have been brought down to Gympie North and be taken down into Gympie Town Yard, which is basically it's empty, and buses could operate to Gympie North from Brisbane and people could board the trains there. That's the spirit of the Outback and the spirit of Queensland, and there could have been a tilt train if they wanted to run that as well. But anyway, they could have had an evening tilt to Bundaberg, for example, if they wish. But they didn't, they just stopped everything. Now, especially for my interstate and overseas friends who can't visualise how massive this whole thing is, I filmed the buses going out from near number 10 platform in Roma Street yesterday, and I said to the bus driver on the leading bus, "Oh mate, how far are you going? You get all the way to Rockhampton." "Oh yeah, really? Oh, okay, yeah." Oh, I said, "Gee, that'd have to be about a 10-hour run, wouldn't it?" He said, "Oh no, more like 12 hours. I said, "Oh, okay, thank you." And I filmed the 3 buses going off for their 12-hour run. I'm not going to argue whether the whole 3 went to Rockhampton. They possibly didn't. Possibly one of the money went to Bundaberg, or one might have gone to Gladstone and so on. But those people, poor souls as they were, sat on that bus from Brisbane to Rockhampton to get their train to Cairns. So they faced a 12-hour bus ride before they're able to board the train. Late at night, they would have got into Rockhampton at about 10:25 p.m. and the train wouldn't be going till after midnight, but they could get into their rail beds if they had lucky enough to have a rail bed, and they could get into their seats and they could perhaps open up the snack bar and they could have people sitting there, and it would leave on time then at about 12:15 or something like that, or whatever it is in the morning. It'd go, off it'd go, you know. So that is the extent of it. It was a big shutdown. Now, we face this, and I call it the London disease. We face this all the time. We don't just get this every few months, we get this every few weeks. That people could, I stand to be corrected in other words, but I reckon about every 6 weeks they close down each of the lines. So you've got the Ipswich line, you'd have, of course, all the lines I just mentioned to the airport and Kippering, all that sort of thing would be closed down every few weeks. And down to Beenleigh, and then there'd be a portion of the Gold Coast line would get closed, and then there'd be the Cleveland line and so forth that get closed over an entire weekend. Now have the media let's say, if this gets to anyone in the media, rail back on track. Bob Dow in Brisbane, I will send a copy to you. Alan Miles and Kevin Eady in Sydney. You say, well, why would you do that? Well, because in New South Wales, we got the London disease came to Sydney. Now, every weekend in Sydney, they close lines down. There's no surprise, by the way. And they do something. I'm not trying to be sarcastic or nasty or anything, but they invent something to do on each of the lines. Oh, let's go out and cut the brushes on the side of the railway line and we'll close it down. Oh, next time, we're going to replace some sleepers or cross ties as the Americans call it. Oh, we'll do that. Oh, another time. Oh, I've got a bit of painting to do out there. Oh, yeah, that's right. The next time, I've got to do something to the signals. Oh, okay. And there'll be buses running all weekend. And then 6 weeks later, I'll come along and do the same thing. Now, Bob Schroeder in Sydney actually, on this Eco Transit, by the way, he got into the media, which was good. And I got on him for that. I think he got on radio, I heard that. And he got into the local newspaper. I don't know about the Daily Telegraph, but he certainly got into the local newspaper around Sutherland, I believe. For the closing down for 10 days of the Cronulla branch, which only recently at the time had been rebuilt and double-tracked and really modernised, which was excellent. But suddenly they closed it down for 10 days. Why? Oh, well, a little bit of painting. Oh, why? Oh, gee, we've got to cut. I don't even know if they did the painting, by the way, but we've got to get the whippersnipper out, you see, and we've got to cut the grass a little bit on the side of the railway, you know. Yeah, right? So you think, oh, okay, got to close the railway for that, don't we? Now, in the old days, I don't know, I mean that old days, 20 or 30 years ago, they would have track men with flagmen, they call them. They would have single line working. They'd say, oh well, we're working on the up line, we're doing all this work, and next time we're going to work on the down line. So we'll be running trains on the up, and it'll be shuttles running up and down to Sutherland, to Cronulla. And this would be the case on all the lines here. And then they would run their maintenance program basically at night time. Now, any of you who know or have heard anything about the Shinkansen, you'll say, well, that's in Japan, that's a high-speed train. That's quite true. And how can you compare it? Well, I said for this discussion, I certainly can compare it. It's carried billions of passengers. It carries millions and millions every year. It runs 800 trains a day on the Shinkansen services. And they run at 300 kilometres an hour, and they've never had a death or an injury on a Shinkansen train. Now, I'm not talking about introducing high speed here, or even relative high speed. I'd like to see some nice 150 to 200 kilometres an hour running at some stage on some lines. But I'm not even talking about that. But what do? They have a high speed track inspection card. It's a graph, and it x-rays the rails. At what speed? Now in Australia they go along, stop and start. They go along at 20 kilometres an hour, 30 kilometres an hour, But in Japan they do 300 kilometres an hour with a track inspection car. Whole train actually. It's like a bullet train with all the equipment in it. Now, I'm not expecting us to do high speed track machines, or track recording, but they could do better than what they do at the present time. Then they could mark on the graph, well, at mileposts, 56.5, we got a suspect, a few sleepers there, or a suspect, not to say a cracked rail, that'd be addressed immediately. But we've got whatever the problems are. And I'm not trying to be technical about it, but do the track inspection, or they have a program where they know that over a period of time they need to be rebalanced in certain lines, or they have to paint, or they have to do things. As I said, we've been through all that. And then they have a program, and what I would suggest, I openly suggest this to Queensland Rail right now, and I've discussed this on the comments section of my video about what I call it duct tape repairs of the, I think, and this actually happened yesterday. NGR, they call it, New Generation Rolling Stock, that was duct taped to fix up a driver's rear vision mirror that had broken or something, and I'm going to send that car out to the workshops, I guess, and have it fixed. That was alright, I could be sarcastic about it, but I don't care. It's just an example of what's going on in QR. But I've got these buses, as I said, that were leaving to take people up to 12 hours up to Rockhampton, and I thought this has just got to stop. Now, what would happen, I would suggest to Queensland Rail, is very simple. On the first week of every January, 1st of January to the next weekend, just first 1 week, approximately the first week, you'd say, right, Caboolture to Gympie North is going to be closed. We've got a lot of work to do on that line. We're going to run buses, coaches and everything up to Gympie, and we've got trains stored there and bring them out and send them on the way to Cairns or Longreach and whatever, So you do that once, and then the next year you say, oh, well, we're going to do Bundaberg all the way to Rockhampton. We've got a lot of odds and ends to be done. We're going to send a team of people. They're going to be swarming all over the railway and doing all the work for a solid 24 hours a day, 7 days out of that week. The whole week it's going to be closed. Now that'll disrupt all the coal trains and everything else that about Central Queensland. But if they say, oh, well, we're only going to do that, and you won't see that happening again out this way for about 3 years because we've fixed it up, right? And the other section, you fixed it up, as I say, between Gympie and Bundaberg on another occasion. And then Bundaberg, as I said, beyond. You would never close down the entire Brisbane to Rockhampton. It is completely uncalled for. It is ridiculous. It's utterly absurd. And this is where a person might ask the question, is there any corruption involved in this? And straight away you get people saying, oh no, wait a minute, no, Queensland Rail wouldn't be corrupt. Oh, what are you accusing them of? Well, I'm not actually accusing them of anything. By the way, if you've got your solicitors, your lawyers hard at work thinking, oh, I'm going to sue this guy for saying corruption. Oh, he linking Queensland to corruption. No, you can't do that. I put it to you. I asked the question. And I say that there ought to be a judicial inquiry into these bus replacement programs for track work. This whole track work regime should be examined top to bottom in Queensland, and it should be examined in New South Wales. And for those people like Alan Miles and Kevin Eadie who have been involved most of their lives, let's say, for many, many years anyway, I was involved in it myself a little bit there back in the 80s. I was involved in Action for Public Transport a bit. I was involved with my union in those days. It was the National Union of Railwaymen. And we met with Ministers for Transport. We met with people like Barry Unsworth, who became Premier years later. We met with Ron Mulock, who was the Transport Minister at the time as well for years. And we met with senior SRA, as they call them, New South Wales Railways management. Made quite a number of suggestions on bus routes, cross country. I suggested Moree to Grafton, for example, which runs today. And there are a number of others. And I suggested, personally, I was rung up actually by them, and I could talked about this coach that used to sit in Forbes all day, to come down for a short run from Parks to Forbes, sit there all day, and what would you do with it? said I'd send it out to Tottenham. Well, they did that for several years. So I'm getting a little bit off the track here, but other than saying, I have raised various ideas, and we've, as a union, we raised ideas in New South Wales, including on the intercapital daylight, used to go from Sydney to Melbourne, vice versa, the idea of standby fares. Oh, well, if people come 24 hours before, and there's plenty of seats, there's few, there's 20 or 30 seats available, whatever. Oh, we can get those for half fare. And fill your train up. That's just for example. So now I'm saying that all of the maintenance in Sydney and in Melbourne can be done overnight, as they do in Japan, and as they would do, I'm sure, in places like New York, I'm sure Los Angeles and other places, they would never close things down every weekend. Could you imagine? The people would go berserk if they faced closures like that every week in some places around the world. So I'm putting it to everybody, something has gone awry there. Something has really gone bad over the years with this, and it's only getting worse, let's say. I suggest an inquiry, and I suggest a change of methods of how and when you do maintenance. I put those ideas to everybody concerned. I'm mentioning the organisations I'm sending this to, and I'm hoping that certain people in the media get hold of it, because I'm going to include a little bit of footage with a TV screen, by the way, on channel, platform 10. Train, bus, mind you, bus from Charleville. So wait a minute, that line wasn't closed. That was coming in at 10:25, whatever it might be. Really? What happened to the spirit of the outback? Now, I do suggest, and I'll give you a scenario on this in a moment, but I suggest that most people would have been informed. They say, oh no, well, you see, we're not going to run the train at 1:55 p.m. on Saturday, the 3rd of February. We're going to run it at 6:05 p.m. on the 2nd, on the night time. We're going to run the nighttime schedule on the 2nd. So can you make that? No, yeah, of course you can. 90% of the people would be informed, and we'd get on that and we'd be happy. But there are people, and I'll give you this scenario, there would be people from interstate and overseas that people would have booked that 1:55 p.m. Spirit of the Outback, highlight of their trip to Australia, going out to Longreach, and we're going to go to the Stockman's Hall of Fame, we're going to go to the Qantas Museum, we're going to do other things, and then we're going to get this train back again a few days later, and it's going to be a fantastic outback adventure. And get to Australia to go on that, and the train's gone. Well, I'll be blowed. It went away on Friday night, but they're standing around on Saturday saying, where's my train? Well, that's the sort of thing that I suggest to people would happen. Probably has happened. And I'm saying to people in general, fix this problem up, please. Now, I'm going to run a little bit of the footage I took yesterday, and I would welcome any questions or comments on YouTube and of course on Facebook. And I had one guy being sorry about that, I got cut off mid-sentence because I ran out of battery power, would you believe? So I'll try and conclude this fairly soon. He said, movie of the coaches and train. Don't get close to the movie of trains and coaches because it's no good. He says, it's crap. Sorry about that, I got hemmed in, but I got a movie of it. No one else did at the time, I'm pretty sure. And I'm taking it further, in other words, so the person can complain if they like about that, but I do a reasonable job with this little camera I've got. And I get more compliments about my movies than criticism. So there you go. So I'm going to include that little bit of footage, and I hope that anyone who views this would find it of interest and would make some reasonable comments and questions at the end of it, and I welcome that. So thank you for viewing. I'm on platform 10, and there's a sign saying it's got buses up to the north, and Rockhampton, which is a terribly long distance. Charleville, from Charleville, 11:25. Maybe they mean by bus, would you believe? We'll wait and see what's going on. This is rather unusual. Well, there's a fleet of buses here outside platform 10. Unbelievable, I think they go long distances too. They mentioned Rockhampton, surely not. I'll attempt to find out, but there's 3 buses here, and I hope they're not operating all the way to Rockhampton to replace the trains. Well, it is quite stunning actually. These buses should have gone at 10 o'clock, it's now 10:25. And as unbelievable as it may seem, the driver of the first bus just told me it's about a 12-hour trip to Rockhampton. So could anyone imagine that? I need to go on the tilt train in about 7 hours, 7.5 hours. By the way, there goes the first bus. And they're facing, here we go, another one. Facing a 12-hour trip. Here goes the third one. Unbelievable. Different bus lines. 3 coaches taking 12 hours to get to Rockhampton instead of